Hi everyone, I'm Paul Orfanos, National Community Engagement Manager at Delphi Bank, which is a division of the Bendigo Adelaide Group, and welcome to Delphi Connect, a segment where, as part of our commitment to community engagement, we bring you leading experts from fields as far and wide as economics and the markets, health, scientific research, the arts, community affairs, just to name a few. Hopefully you'll find our segments both informative and enjoyable. Let's move straight on to today's guest, Helen Zahos. Helen is an emergency nurse, paramedic and humanitarian who has volunteered in disaster areas around the world and has cared for some of the most vulnerable people in the world. Helen is recognised internationally for her work and has recently been awarded 2 International Stevie Awards, one for her work as a nurse and the other for her non-for-profit work helping and teaching in disadvantaged countries. Congratulations, Helen, on your achievements and welcome to our segment.
Thank you, Paul.
Now, you're currently working at the Gold Coast University Hospital Critical Care Unit, but your work in the past has exposed you to emergency departments, rural and remote areas, and also to humanitarian and disaster relief responses in many countries, including the Philippines, where you travelled to volunteer after Typhoon Haiyan and Nepal after it was struck by a very large earthquake in 2015. Can you give us a summary of what you experienced when you arrived at these destinations and what an average day for a humanitarian nurse looks like?
I think even from the get-go, as soon as you get the word that you have to leave, usually, like in the past, we used to have a bag ready to go. So it's a very quick mobilisation of a team to get overseas. And that happened with the Nepal earthquake and with Typhoon Haiyan. When you turn up, it depends how you turn up. I've turned up in RAF planes before on an airbase where it seems like the entire world's turned up because all these military planes are waiting as well, that they've all just arrived. With the Nepal earthquake, we went on a we went on a normal flight. And on arrival there again, it seemed like the entire world had turned up because our entire plane was the Japanese army sitting on our commercial flight. So once you get there, there's a lot of, on the tarmac, a lot of relief in terms of a lot of boxes and pallets for relief to be handed out. And yeah, from the get-go, it's stocking up helicopters, filling up buses and trying to get the team up onto the mountain where the epicenter of the earthquake happened and the majority of the patients are. So an ordinary day for us, literally when we got to the top of that mountain or into the village where we were stationed, the military was there. They'd set up a camp for us. We had to pitch our own tents and it was literally like camping. We'd wake up in the morning and I'd be brushing my teeth with about 200 or 300 people watching me. They were all waiting to be seen as patients. I'd have to go down to the river to bath. There was no running water. If you can imagine, even our pharmacy, we didn't have any cold. We had no electricity, so we had to dig a hole. We had a clay pot that we filled with water to keep all our cold pharmaceuticals in there. So, very basic living. So, and you're already tired because you're sharing a tent with 10 other people crammed in there, and it's pretty tough going. Yeah.
Helen, during the Syrian crisis, thousands of refugees were fleeing Syria for the Greek islands in what was a humanitarian crisis. Again, you offered your help. I believe it was winter when you arrived. What is some of the imagery that remains with you from this experience?
I think it's one thing to look at it on the TV and it's another thing to turn up. And that's exactly, I just remember how surreal, and I'm getting goosebumps now thinking about it. Turning up on Lesbos Island in that airport, one of the team members came to pick me up. And as we're driving towards the camp, the refugee camp that, they were receiving thousands upon thousands at the time, that's what we saw on the road, was just thousands of people walking. They were walking on foot, and it was just something very surreal and something I probably won't forget. Out of all the disasters, and I've said this before, out of all of the disasters that I've attended, I think that was the worst, was the refugee crisis. And I think maybe it was a bit of ownership there because I am from a Greek heritage, and I'm a little bit passionate about Greece and seeing how it had an already suffering country. it was really difficult. Yeah, but
Would
I
have been
felt,
amazing scenes.
yeah.
Helen, live conflicts haven't dampened your humanitarian spirit. And in 2017, you find yourself on the outskirts of the Iraqi city of Mosul, which was still in conflict. Now, it's hard for most of us to understand what it would be like in a war zone, but how did you manage your safety in war zones and in other crisis zones? And what supports do you have in these environments?
Well, firstly, I went there with an organised team, so it's not something that you just turn up to when you're going on these missions. So there is training involved. We do have discussions around what happens if you get, kidnapped, if you're taken, if you're injured over there. So, you do have to think about those things. There's discussions and there's education behind that. But on arrival, you're living in a compound, so there's army in the compound as well. There is an underlying, okay, it's there, you're aware, there's an awareness there, but there's times where you get so used to the surroundings that you forget and you don't feel scared all the time. You do actually let yourself relax a little bit. I know that sounds a bit weird, but we would leave the compound every day. We would drive the 2 hours or 2.5 towards Mosul. So we didn't live right there where the conflict was. We'd always move away. So we're about 15K away, but there was still a lot of air traffic and things happening on the road as well. And in terms of safety, there was always security around. There is a photo of me on the internet with one of our security guards, and he, he's got the full black balaclava, and it's different. And they warn you not to step on certain areas on the ground that haven't been swept for landmines, and you're very conscious, but you are there to do a job. So, yeah.
Now, Helen, you've been quoted as saying that you no longer see nursing as a career, but you see it as a way of life. What do you mean by this?
I think I said that in the context of, with my humanitarian work, it's, we have values, and as nurses, we have certain values that we abide by. And I think if you follow those, or if you, follow those values, it merges into a way of life. It goes back to caring for your neighbour. If I talk about, in my TED talk, I talk about in terms of having skills or going and volunteering, that if you can give a bottle of water to someone that's someone that's thirsty, if you can wrap a blanket around someone that's cold, getting back to basic humanity. And I think that's what I mean is, with my nursing, it's humanity that we're looking after. And when you've got those values, it just does become so. Yeah.
Your initial path into nursing was not an easy one. In fact, you were not accepted into university when you first applied. Can you share some of the hurdles you faced at the beginning of your career and how you overcame them?
I tried really hard as a student in high school, and I was generally, I was a good kid, but I think I put a lot of pressure on myself, so I did quite badly. Mum and dad were, I don't know about other parents that are first generation, when you're first generation born here, your parents are really quite hard because they want you to have a better life and better education than what they had. And so I think I put a lot of pressure on myself, with the outcome being that I didn't fail. I just didn't have enough. If, say, you had 60 marks to get into uni, I scraped in on, say, 58 or 59. And so I didn't get accepted, and I got a lot of knockbacks in all of the courses that I had applied for. And it was actually one of my teachers, that one of my primary school teachers from Good Island, where I grew up, and she actually helped me write a letter to the university, and that's how they let me in the end. But on the proviso that I passed the first couple of semesters, which I just scraped in on, and that's how I kind of struggled through uni. It was all of my assignments coming back covered in red pen. I was never one of those students that could get away with not studying. I felt like I studied really hard, and I really struggled. And other people seemed to sail through, and that it just wasn't for me. I just couldn't write those essays, so. Yeah.
It's a great lesson to all of us to overcome obstacles that are in our way.
Oh, I think, that's what gets you through is perseverance and just that tenacity, and I'm a little bit stubborn as well. So, you know, my lecturer actually did suggest that I give up and I quit because she could see that I wasn't going to make it academically. But lucky for me, nursing is a very hands-on job, and so is paramedics. So that, you know, I think that got me through. And I was very determined. There was a determination there, and I really didn't want to fail. And that's what got me through in the end. So, yeah.
Helen, most people have a moment where they feel that they've made the correct career path. What was yours? What was that special moment?
Oh, I think my moment was probably a year after I graduated, and I was on the side of the road helping a woman that had been hit by 2 cars that had attempted to cross the road. And I was just driving along and saw this accident up ahead, and I got out and helped, and I did everything that I could, you know. And I was actually really proud of myself for what I was able to do to try and help stabilise this woman. And with the equipment that I had and with the fire service there was no ambulance there. And yeah, I remember looking up during that time, and the lecturer that had told me to quit was actually standing there, and she was driving the vehicle that had hit that person crossing the road. And for me, I remember it probably took about 2 weeks for me to realise, but I thought, wow, that was my moment where I've actually proved, and it came full circle, but I proved that, you know, I was meant for this, and I did succeed. So I probably didn't even realise it when I graduated. I think I just kind of scraped in and, you know, just did everything that I could just to pass and get that bit of paper. But even holding that paper in my hand wasn't enough. I think that fulfillment or validation that I got from that incident, yeah, it was an important moment for me.
A special moment.
Yeah.
Now, some people believe that they don't have the skills to volunteer. What advice can you give to these people?
Oh, look, there's so many different ways you can volunteer, and I'm surrounded by them all. Like, I was on social media the other day, and there was a group of women here in Brisbane that had made some cards at the Brisbane, the Greek Orthodox community, and they had sat down and made handmade cards to sell to raise money for some people over in Fiji in a mission there. As an example, you don't have to be highly skilled. People think that, or they often say to me, oh, I want to go and do that, but I don't have your skills. Yeah, you need training. Yeah, you need, you know, a certain amount. But honestly, if you can hand out that bottle of water, you know, wrap someone up in a blanket if they need, console them if they're grieving. I really do believe, you know, I look at the guys down at good old Bunnings, you know, doing up the old sausage sizzles and helping in that way. It doesn't have to be overseas. You don't have to go to Mosul. You don't have to go to these crazy kind of intense places. You can volunteer here in your own backyard, in your own community, even if that means just looking out for your neighbour. We can all help. And I think, especially now during this this pandemic, and I think, you know, we've have to bring it back to basics. And a lot of things that we've worried about in the past, I think I don't know how to describe it, but I think it's brought us back to the basic way of thinking, and not stressing about things that we don't really need to stress about. So, you know, if we can go out and volunteer just here in our community and help each other out just locally, it's really rewarding. It can change you. I think that's really, I think I feel guilty because I gain more from those trips away in helping all of those people. And they often turn around and thank me, but I think, no, just being able to help you has made, you know, I'm rewarded by that. So, yeah.
Finally, Helen, you also presented at the UN Sustainable Development Goals Summit in Geneva. How did this opportunity come about, and what were the main outcomes of the forum?
Yeah, crazy. Hey, that girl that could barely even get into uni ends up at in Geneva speaking at the UN Sustainable Development Goal Summit. And I ended up speaking on non-communicable diseases, and we talked about 3 African countries, but I was able to bring that back to the Australian Indigenous communities that I've worked in and do a comparison and look at, you know, non-communicable diseases here in Australian Indigenous communities. But they're here in a developed country. These African countries are in a developing country, and, you know, looking at that contrast. And how does that come about? I happen to be given a pass to New York to the UN Commission on the Status of Women. And there was 2 passes that was handed out, and it was just sitting at a breakfast, and I had a conversation with someone. I said, hey, I'd love to be able to get the opportunity to do that one day. And she said, oh, you should apply. Here's the link. And I did it. And I thought, oh, there's no way I'll even get a look in. And sure enough, within 10 minutes of sending that away, I got a response. So there I am in New York. There was a media, something put out in the media that I would be speaking on the world stage, and I was mortified that a newspaper had put something like that out. And I said, I never told them in the interview that I'd be standing up on stage speaking. I just mentioned that I was keen to, look at other Indigenous cultures and do a comparison of the same, the health issues that we've got. And this woman said, Helen, she overheard the conversation I was having, again, over breakfast. I like to eat. And she said to me, I'll make an honest woman of you. I'll give you 5 minutes up on stage. I've got a panel of speakers this afternoon. And I remember just sitting there going, no way, no, that's my worst nightmare, getting up in front of and speaking in front of all these people. But as scared I was, I forced myself to get up there. And then from that, getting up there and speaking, and there was pretty impressive people on this panel. And from that little opportunity, I then get an invite. Yeah, someone obviously saw me up on stage. A card was handed to me and they said, Helen, we want you in Geneva to come and present. And I just thought, wow, I'm just an ordinary girl here on the Gold Coast that's nursing at the hospital in the emergency department. I'm just, I am just an ordinary person. But I've had the opportunity to do some pretty incredible things. So, yeah, count my blessings. I really do.
Helen, you've done very well. Thanks for making time to be with us today and sharing what is actually a very inspirational story.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. And feel free to reach out if anyone, has any questions or anything like that. I know today in this kind of forum, it's difficult. It's easy to find me on social media or LinkedIn or whatever. So feel free to reach out and connect. Often people have more questions when they hear these kind of stories because, like I said, you can be an ordinary person and you can get out there and make a difference for people. So thanks for having me on today.
It's been our pleasure. That's all today on Delphi Connect. On behalf of all of us at Delphi Bank, thanks for joining us. Bye for now.